All right, so today we're really diving deep
Why?
into this AI that can see, right?
Yeah.
With incredible detail. We're talking LLaVA UHD V2,
Mm-hmm.
this multimodal large language model
Yeah.
that's kind of changing things up.
Yeah, it's really interesting. What I think is so cool about it is how it takes these high-resolution images
Yeah.
and integrates them right into the language model. It's not just about, like, processing images. It's like it's part of how the AI understands the world.
So it's not just looking at pictures, it's using them to think.
Yeah, exactly.
But before we get too far, can we back up just a little bit?
Sure.
What's the problem with how traditional VVATs,
Right.
vision transformers,
Vision transformers, yeah.
handle these images in these multimodal models?
So traditional VATs, they kind of have this issue
Okay.
where they can't really get all the visual detail they need for different tasks. Like, for example, visual grounding, right?
Yeah.
That needs very fine-grained detail. Like, imagine you're trying to find a specific bird in a forest.
Right. So like one specific tiny little bird in a whole forest.
Exactly. You need that level of detail.
Got it.
But then you've got something like image captioning, which needs like a bigger picture view.
Okay. So it's like you need a microscope for one thing.
Right.
And then you need a wide-angle lens for the other.
Exactly.
So how does LLaVA UHD V2 and its hierarchical window transformer approach this differently?
So the key here is it builds a high-resolution feature pyramid.
Okay.
It's like taking that image and making this multi-layered map.
Yeah.
And each layer is focusing on a different level of detail.
So the bottom layer would be like all the tiny details?
Yes, exactly. Like, individual feathers on that bird.
Wow.
But what's really neat is how they build this pyramid.
Okay.
It starts with that initial analysis from the VT. And then it uses this technique called guided feature upsampling.
Guided feature upsampling.
Yeah, to add in those high-frequency details.
Okay, hold on. So what is guided feature upsampling?
Okay, so imagine you're taking a blurry picture.
Okay.
And you want to make it sharper, right? So guided feature upsampling does something like that.
Okay.
It takes that initial analysis and enhances specific details, making it sharper and sharper at each level of the pyramid.
So it's not just randomly adding details back in.
Yeah.
It's intelligently picking what to make sharper.
Exactly. It's being very selective.
But how does it make those choices?
So that's where the JBU module comes in.
JB?
Joint bilateral upsampling.
Oh, okay.
It basically acts like this really smart filter, making sure only the most important details get amplified while keeping everything looking coherent.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But wouldn't all this extra detail make the model super slow?
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But here's where the second part of HighWin comes in.
Okay.
Hierarchical window attention.
Right.
This is all about compressing all that pyramid information while still keeping the important stuff.
So it's like a super focused zoom lens, basically jumping between all those different details.
Right. It knows what to focus on.
Got it.
And LLaVA UHD V2, it goes even further.
Okay.
It maintains those relationships between the visual tokens spatially.
Right.
So it actually understands the structure of the image, not just a jumble of details.
Okay, so we've got this impressive feature pyramid. It's capturing all the little details in the big picture.
Yeah.
That's a lot of engineering.
It is.
But I have to ask, does it actually work?
That's the exciting part. They tested it on a bunch of benchmarks.
Okay, yeah.
Industry standard stuff for these MLLMs.
Give me the highlights. What happened?
Well, on DocVQA, that's one challenging benchmark focused on document understanding. They saw a 9.3% improvement over other models.
9.3, that's huge.
It is.
Wow.
And across 14 different benchmarks, the average improvement was 3.7%.
So this isn't just a small improvement, it's a pretty big jump.
Definitely a big jump.
But performance is only part of the story, right?
Yeah.
How efficient is it?
Great question. This is where it really shines.
Okay.
They compared it to other models, like LLaVA Next and Mini Gemini, models that handle high-res images.
Yeah.
Not only does it support 1.5 times higher resolution, it uses less than 40% of the computational cost.
Hold on, so it's more powerful and more efficient?
Yeah.
How?
Well, it's all in that clever architecture.
Okay.
The way it integrates those details.
Right.
By using that single structure with a HighWin transformer, it avoids a lot of complexity and overhead.
So it's like having one efficient multi-tool.
Exactly. Instead of a whole toolbox of individual tools.
Yeah.
And there's another aspect of efficiency here. Data usage. Compared to models like, say, Honeybee or Vila, which use tons of data for training, LLaVA UHD V2 does just as well, even better sometimes.
Wow.
with just a tiny fraction of the data. We're talking about a 97.2% reduction.
That's incredible. It's like finding the shortcut to AI brilliance.
It really is. Less data, more insight.
Yeah.
And it really challenges that idea that bigger is always better in AI.
So this isn't just a trick. It's like a fundamental insight that could change the whole field.
I think so.
Did they do any visualizations?
They did, and it's fascinating.
Okay.
They made these case studies where LLaVA UHD v2 had to do complex tasks. Stuff that required understanding both the fine details and the big picture.
Okay. Like what?
Like in one case, they showed it a newspaper photo.
Okay.
And they asked it to find the person planting the tree.
Right.
Now, this picture was full of text and all sorts of details.
Right.
LLaVA UHD v2 was able to pinpoint the right person.
Wow.
By cross-referencing their name from the text around them.
So it's not just matching faces, it's reading and understanding the text.
Exactly, making connections.
That's really impressive.
It is.
Did they have any examples with really, really subtle details?
Yeah, they showed it a basketball game photo. They asked it to identify a specific player's number.
Oh, okay.
Now, the player was moving, partially blocked by other players.
Right.
The image was even a bit blurry.
Oh, wow.
But it got it right.
It identified the number.
Yeah.
Wow.
And understood what the player was doing.
So it's almost like the model can understand a scene just like a human.
That's the goal, right? To have that level of understanding.
Did they look at how the different levels of the feature pyramid contribute to the output?
Yes. They analyze what they call semantic activation.
Semantic activation.
Yeah, basically looking at which parts of the image light up.
Okay.
In response to words or concepts.
Right.
And they found that the feature pyramid is really key for the model to decode language in this nuanced way.
Okay, I'm not sure I get that. What do you mean nuanced language decoding?
So, for example, they noticed that tokens related to text recognition,
okay,
like those used in OCR,
right,
has stronger activations at the higher feature levels.
Where those tiny details are. So it's like it knows to zoom in for those tiny details.
That's right.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And the same thing went for understanding objects.
Right. Figuring out what an object is.
Yeah.
Those higher feature levels
right.
with the sharper details help the model to better understand the shapes.
Okay.
Leading to more accurate identification.
So this is starting to paint a picture of how this works.
Yeah.
It's not just a black box. It's got this whole process.
It's a complex system.
It's actually making me think about how our brains work.
That's a great point. I think that's what's so fascinating about this kind of research.
Yeah.
It demystifies AI a bit.
It does.
And shows the potential of these models to interact with the world in ways we never thought possible.
This is incredible. And we're just getting started. We'll continue exploring the implications of LLaVA UHD v2 and its potential impact on different fields in our next segment. Stay tuned.
Welcome back.
You know, it's not just the performance of LLaVA UHD v2, it's what it tells us about where AI is going.
Right, exactly.
It feels like a real turning point.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it really shows how important visual granularity is.
Okay, so visual granularity. Can we break that down a little bit?
Yeah, so visual granularity, it's about being able to not just see the whole image,
right,
but to understand all the details within it at different levels. You know, it's like the difference between seeing a car
right,
and knowing it's a specific make and model.
Oh, okay.
Or even spotting a tiny dent on the fender.
So it's about moving beyond just recognizing an object.
Yeah.
It's about actually understanding the detail.
Right, exactly.
Almost like how we see things.
Yeah, that's the goal.
But how does all this detail actually help in real-world situations?
Well, think about medical diagnosis.
Okay.
Imagine an AI that can not only spot a tumor,
right,
but can analyze its texture, its shape,
yeah,
to give a more accurate prognosis.
So it's not just, is it there or not?
Yeah.
It's about understanding the specifics.
Exactly. And that could revolutionize how we treat diseases.
What about something like self-driving cars?
Oh, absolutely.
How would visual granularity play a role there?
Self-driving cars rely on visual input, right?
Right, yeah.
To navigate safely. With this enhanced visual granularity,
yeah,
they could not only recognize pedestrians and other cars, but they could see those subtle cues.
Like what?
Like a kid about to run into the street.
Oh, wow.
Or a cyclist signaling a turn.
So it's about making them more aware of the small details.
Yes, the things that we pick up on instinctively.
To make safer decisions.
Exactly.
That's amazing. But where does LLaVA UHD v2 fit into the bigger picture of AI?
That's a good question.
how does it compare to other models out there?
Well, there's Mini Gemini, for example.
Right, Mini Gemini.
It uses this network of visual experts,
Okay.
each trained to recognize different things.
So it's like a team of specialists.
Yeah,
all working together to
Oh, yeah.
analyze the image.
Oh,
But that sounds pretty complex.
it can be.
Mm.
And computationally expensive.
So a lot of brain power, but it comes at a cost.
Right. Yeah.
So how does LLaVA UHD v2 do things differently?
It takes a simpler approach.
Okay.
It uses that single Highwind transformer architecture,
Mhm.
and it gets similar, even better performance sometimes.
Wow.
Without all the overhead of managing multiple systems.
So one really good multitasker.
Exactly. Instead of a whole team.
But does it lose anything in terms of accuracy?
No, not at all.
Or the range of things it can do?
Actually, it's great at tasks that need that detailed understanding,
Right.
both of the small details and the overall context.
You mentioned LLaVA Next earlier.
Right.
That one's really good at reading text and images.
Yeah.
How does LLaVA UHD v2 compare to that?
So LLaVA Next is great at OCR, but LLaVA UHD v2 takes it a step further.
How so?
It doesn't just read the text.
Okay.
It understands it in the context of the whole image.
So it's making connections
Yeah.
between the text and the other things in the image.
Exactly. So it could read a store sign, but also figure out what kind of store it is.
Based on what else is in the picture.
Right, using the visual cues.
That's really impressive.
It is.
And it's all about that data efficiency too, right?
Oh yeah, data efficiency is becoming so important.
Yeah.
Models like Honeybee and Ville,
Right. Yeah.
they need huge amounts of data,
Yeah.
which can be a problem for a lot of researchers.
It's like trying to keep up with someone who has way more resources.
Exactly.
But LLaVA UHD v2 does just as well.
Or even better,
With way less data.
with a fraction of the data.
That's incredible.
It's a really smart design.
So it's not just about throwing more data at the problem.
No, it's about being clever.
And this has big implications, doesn't it?
It does. It means smaller teams can compete,
Right?
and we can see more innovation.
So LLaVA UHD v2 is all about doing more with less.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
But why should our listener care about all of this?
Oh, if you think about it,
Yeah.
LLaVA UHD v2 is a step towards AI that's more intuitive,
Yep.
more efficient,
Uh-huh.
and closer to how we see the world.
It's about making AI that's not just smarter,
Right.
but more human-like
Yes, exactly.
in how it understands images.
And that has implications for everything.
Yeah.
How we work, how we learn,
Right.
even how we create art.
Are we getting ahead of ourselves here?
I don't think so. These models are laying the foundation.
For AI that's more integrated into our lives,
Exactly.
helping us to do amazing things?
That's the hope
Okay, so we've covered a lot.
we have.
What's the one key takeaway you'd want our listener to remember?
I would say it's this. Efficiency matters. LLaVA UHD v2 proves that we can make huge strides in AI, not just by scaling things up,
Right.
but by being smart about design and processing.
And understanding how we see the world.
Exactly.
That's a really powerful message.
I think so.
And it gives me a lot of hope for the future of AI. We'll be right back to wrap up this fascinating deep dive into LLaVA UHD v2. So we're back. And I don't know about you, but my mind is still like blown
Oh, yeah.
by all this stuff about LLaVA UHD v2.
It's really incredible, isn't it?
It really is. It feels like AI is on this
Yeah.
verge of a whole new way of
Yeah.
interacting with images.
Definitely.
If it can already understand them with this much detail.
Right.
What's next? Where do we go from here?
Well, that's the big question, right?
It is.
One area that I'm really fascinated by is
Yeah.
moving beyond just still images
Okay.
to dynamic content like video.
Video.
Imagine AI that can analyze video,
Uh-huh.
not just recognize what's in it,
Right.
but understand the actions, the emotions,
Wow.
even predict what might happen next.
So instead of just a snapshot,
Right.
it's like understanding the whole story.
Yeah, like reading a visual story.
That's mind-blowing.
It is.
What kind of real-world impact could that have?
Oh, I mean, the possibilities are huge.
Yeah.
Think about security footage.
Oh,
AI could analyze that footage,
great.
not just spot potential threats,
Uh-huh.
but maybe even anticipate crimes before they happen.
So it's like taking preventative measures.
Exactly, preventing crime instead of just reacting to it.
And what about education?
Education, oh yeah, that's a big one.
How could this help with learning?
Well, imagine AI that can personalize lessons
Right.
based on how a student is reacting to a video.
So it's adapting to the student in real time.
Exactly. Seeing if they're engaged, confused, bored.
Wow. So it's like having a personal tutor for every student.
That's the idea.
That's incredible.
It is.
But video is just one kind of dynamic content, right?
Right.
What about 3D environments? Virtual reality, the
Oh,
metaverse.
yeah, that's a whole other frontier.
I mean, AI is already generating 3D models,
It is.
but imagine it designing entire virtual worlds.
Worlds that respond to us,
Right.
to our actions, our emotions.
It's like stepping into a video game
Yeah.
where the world reacts to you.
And the lines between real and virtual get blurred.
The possibilities are just, I don't even know.
It's hard to even imagine, right?
It is, but as we create this AI, it's more powerful,
Yeah.
more integrated into our lives.
Uh-huh.
There's some things we have to think about, right?
Oh, absolutely. Ethics, for one.
Ethics, right?
Making sure these systems are aligned with human values.
Making sure they're used for good.
Exactly. And
Transparency.
transparency, yeah. So we understand how they work.
We need to be having these conversations
We do.
as we develop these technologies.
It's a shared responsibility.
Researchers, policymakers, everyone.
Everyone needs to be involved.
So the future of AI is really in our hands.
It is. It's up to us to guide its development.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive into LLaVA UHD V2,
Yeah.
I'm left feeling this, like,
Yeah.
sense of awe and excitement.
Yeah.
It feels like we're at the start of something really big,
It does, doesn't it?
like a whole new era of AI.
And the progress is incredible.
It is.
And I'm optimistic about the future,
Me too.
if we're smart about it.
Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the world of multimodal AI. To everyone listening, stay curious, keep exploring, and let's keep this conversation going. We'll see you next time.